awareness moment. Like, my son said to my husband, we had some kids up the end of the street ages ago that had interesting parents, and these kids were allowed to roam the streets, and they were 3 or 4 years of age. And my son said to my husband, "Geez, Daddy, you'd be really happy that they're leaving. These kids are leaving the street." And Jeff was like, "No, I'm not." And my son, looked at his dad and went, "Whoa, I'm really perplexed right now. I have a sense of self-awareness that my dad will be happy, but my dad, who's my father, I love, my role model, is saying something else." So my points of views as a child, my son, is having this battle of sense of self, the older the person who should know the best. And Jeffrey shares it with me later, and I said, "Well, do you realise that you have just cross-wired him psychologically?" And he was only, my son at that point in time was almost 5. So, and he's like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, yeah. You just ask him to give up his awareness, give up his self-reflection of the world for the perceived adult. And Jeffrey went in there and spoke to his son and said, "No, I'm sorry, you're right. You're right on. I am glad that they're moving, and I'm sorry about, what we talked about." And my son just, "Oh, thanks, Dad." And off he went. Off he went. But they do that to us constantly. They reflect it to us constantly. And it's like, with your own business reflects to you constantly. You'll get a staff member who come in and go, "Oh, hey, we need to change this." So, whether it's having children, having a business, having pets, it's all about self-reflection. They reflect to you what you're doing well and what you're not doing. So, Chris, a couple more minutes. Okay. Lifestyle, make sure you do what you need to do. Go out and travel. And also prepare your girlfriends, or any of your friends, or your male friends as well, that your relationship's going to change if you decide to have kids. That powerfully changes, because some will wait and some won't wait, for you to come back to talking about life rather than just nappies. And biologically, whether you want to go have surrogacy, there are so many great plans out there for you to have. They are all available for you. Medically, everything's changing every day. So don't feel like you have to have a child. Don't feel like this is something that's your path, because you're very well likely going to change your mind so many times. And to give yourself permission to change your mind that many times. And to look at lifestyle and money. Kids cost a lot. Anywhere from $130,000 to $450,000 from 0 to 18. And my experience is that and the women I all talked about is that if they decide to have children, the first one wasn't a topic of can we afford it. The second, third, and onwards was a topic about can we afford it in today's, professions and in the 21st century. So it is a big consideration about whether you have more. So there's a lot of women who are unsure about that. So those are the 5 main topics. I believe I've covered them all biologically. Yeah, career, lifestyle, money, and love. So, again, coming back, choose for yourself, and be happy, and be responsible for your choice. And I just want to say also, a lot of women who have chosen not to have kids are actually happy. There are a lot that are really happy and have made that choice. And there are some, though, out there that are regretful. And there are some people out there who are choosing not to have kids because they've had their parents have been really bad parents, or, and I say that quite seriously, or they've been raped. And gone, you know what, my parents were great parents. They couldn't protect me as a child. How can I protect a child? But that's making a choice out of fear, not out of freedom. And so, those people that I've worked with have gone on to choose to whether they have kids or not, and a number of them have gone on to have kids because they've gone, I can choose to do this because it's not out of fear that I'm not choosing to. So there are more people choosing not to have kids, but there is still a majority of people having children, but they are having it a lot later. And the age of 32 is the medium age for women having children now. 22 to 26 is perceived the prime age for having kids, but they're not. They're doing it at 32. And out of the women having babies at the age of 50, over 30% of those are first-time mums.
Wow. what really interests me, particularly around the choice thing, is a number of us in the circle are already mothers, and what choices did we make to come to that position of deciding to have children? And then that next step of, we are mothers, and what choices are we making now? What choices are we making for the children? Because obviously they're a big part of our life. What choices are we or are we not making for ourselves? There's often that time where it's like, oh no, they come first, this comes first, everything comes first, hence a space like this.
Yeah.
So yeah, that really fascinates me.
Yeah, and are you asking me a question?
Yeah.
Open up a conversation. Look, I found for myself, when my daughter turned 3, was a time that I started to breathe more. When I just thought, you know, I had 3 under 3.5. And for me, I have my mum and dad who are close, and I have some girlfriends who are my antidepressants, so we laughed a lot. And, you know, going back to the laughter, which is so important. But, you know, from the age of my last one being 3 was when I started to come back to me. It's when I started to hug me. There was times there that, you know, I did want to leave my marriage because it was all too much. And I had to sit down quietly and go, am I running away from my husband or my children, or is it that I just need to hug myself? You know, that was the biggest, and it took me 2 weeks to work that out. I was so like, you know, Jeffrey, and he's like, well, where did that come from? You know, but it was because it was so exhausting for me. And I'm so grateful that he gave me the space to really work it out. But it was about me coming back, because I'd just be sitting down and, oh, they're all over me and they just want to love me, but I just need some space for me. And I actually got in a personal trainer because I thought, you know, I really love being healthy and I love being in my body. And for 6 months I worked out with a personal trainer just to get back to my own health and feel my cardio really working. And that was really powerful for me. So, and having 3 under 3.5 was, for me, again, powerful. I was sharing earlier, because suddenly they were all out of nappies. Suddenly they were all push bike riding. Suddenly they were all swimming. So I had these liberties all come back to me. And now, you know, my youngest daughter, my youngest child, she's 4.5. And now I'm back to all my businesses, you know, I'm back to all the things that I love doing. And the book took me 8 years to write, so if anyone's writing a book, it took me 8 years. These women stuck by me, you know, oh, I'm having another baby, hang in there, you know. Another interview, but, you know, I also met women that, I remember being out at a social event and listening to the way this woman was articulating her story with such intensity, and I pulled her aside and said, would you mind if I interview you for my book? So some of these people were my clients, some were people that I'd never met but were articulate, that could share the nuances of their life. You know, in here there's people who have had affairs, you know, whilst, you know, having children. And it wasn't they were looking for sex, it's because the intimacy was challenged in a relationship. And how do you get back to that? Because that is really something that happens, you know? You lose some. They're like, you're thinking, oh, I'm feeling a little amorous, but it's like, hey, mummy, you cuddling? I want to jump in too, you know? So it's like, you know, handling all those life interruptions. But I remember, you know, just remember though, if you choose to have kids, it's your choice. And if you choose not to, don't be embarrassed by your choice. It's a liberate, and a lot more people are going, I owe it to my parents to tell them I'm not having kids. No. When you sit down and talk to your mum and dad and go, you know what, I'm not going to have kids, tell them this is my choice today, mum and dad. It may change tomorrow, but either way, I would like to think that whatever I choose, that you'll support me. And if that's having no kids, then you'll still love me. And that's okay. You know, and be okay telling your friends that if I choose not to have kids, that's okay. And tell your friends out there who are choosing not to have kids that that's okay, because they feel that they can't really share with you because, well, you want to be a mum, I can't tell you that I don't want to go down that path. How do I share that with you that doesn't interest me? But knowing that, you know what, it didn't interest you until a certain age, or it won't, or ever, let that be okay for women who are choosing not to. Because, and one of the other things, women who are choosing not to, if you've got any of those friends, one of the women said, you know, I'm choosing not to, but I'm giving back to the community, because children help really make you give back to the community. She said, you know, we'd do the Christmas feeding the hungry. We'd go out and do something. So if you choose not to have kids, please find a way to give back to the community. Because she noticed that amongst her girlfriends who were having no children, and even as they got older into their 50s and 60s, if they hadn't started to give back to the community, they were just this squawking, whinging, my Prada bag's just not good enough, you know? So find a way to give back. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, good. And I did forget one other thing. Is that, again, for the women who are choosing not to have children, is you get the biological urges. You just do. They come into you and you think, wow, I have got all these creative juices running through me. I may not be able to have a child, or from either may not be able to, may not choose to, but with those energies, turn it into something. Don't just waste it. Don't just let it just meander away. Turn it into if you're not turning it into a beautiful sculpture in the backyard, you know, turn it into a piece of art, turn it into a book, turn it into a business, turn it into something that you're passionate about. Don't waste it. It'll keep surging and surging until one day, you know, your body will start hormonally changing. And then you'll think, I missed that opportunity to reinvent myself. Because I really do believe that your surges are come for giving creative energy, and don't waste it, because when you come down to the other end and menopause sets in and takes off, you come back to you anyway. You know, that's what I think your gift's all about. It's like, you know, you come back to you, but don't waste it. Turn it into something. Thank you.
Thank you. Beautiful. All right, let's take a few moments. Everyone's got their workbook, and I think it's maybe the third page. Right. We've just got a little section there just to write down your insights. So what did I learn about my life or about myself as I listened to this woman's story?